You hear it everywhere, right? AI agents are the next big thing. And it feels like every company on the planet is in a mad dash to build one. But you know, behind all that hype, there's a huge question that keeps coming up in boardrooms. What is the actual price tag for a business to build a real enterprise-grade AI agent? So let's get into it and really break this down.
So let's just cut right to the chase. How much are we really talking about to develop one of these things? And look, we are not talking about a basic chatbot that just answers simple questions. We're talking about a seriously powerful tool that can think, make decisions, and actually do stuff. For any tech leader or executive out there, this is probably the most critical question you need answered right now.
All right, so to figure this out, we've got a pretty clear roadmap. First, we'll nail down what an AI agent even is. Then we'll dive into the big-ticket building blocks. Add it all up for a grand total, look at the costs that keep on coming, explore some ways to save money, and wrap up with the big strategic takeaway.
Okay, first things first. Before we can even begin to talk about the cost, we need to be perfectly clear on what it is we're building. And I really want to stress this point. What we're talking about is so much more complex, so much more capable than a simple chatbot you might find on a website.
A true enterprise AI agent is an autonomous, goal-driven system. The two words to focus on there are autonomous and actions. See, it doesn't just give you answers. It can actually reason, pull information from all over the place, make a call based on that data, and then, and this is the game changer, it can take action across your company's different software system.
So what goes into one of these? Well, you've got the engine, right? The large language model. But then you have to give it a memory, which is where something called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, comes in. Think of RAG as giving the AI its own private, expert library to look things up in. On top of that, you need to build its brain with business logic, give it hands and feet with system integrations, and wrap the whole thing in a bulletproof security system. And yep, every single one of these layers adds to that final cost.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty, the six-figure building blocks. The best way to think about this whole process is like building a custom house. You don't just buy a pile of lumber, right? You've got separate costs for the architect, the foundation, the framing, the plumbing. We're going to follow that exact same idea to see how these costs really stack up.
So step one is the blueprint. Before a single line of code gets written, you have to have a rock-solid plan. This whole phase is about mapping everything out. The architecture, assessing your data, planning security, and figuring out what you want this agent to do first. It's probably the most important first step you can take.
And just getting that blueprint drawn up is going to run you somewhere between $15,000 and $40,000. It's a serious investment for sure, but getting this right sets the entire project up for success. It's where you decide exactly what kind of house you're trying to build.
Okay, blueprints are approved. Now our house needs its engine. Kind of like the furnace and the AC unit all rolled into one. This is the large language model, the LLM. You've got to pick the right one, commercial or open source, and get it all installed. This is the absolute core of the agent's ability to understand what you're saying.
The initial setup for that engine, you're looking at between $5,000 and $25,000. And just keep this in the back of your mind. That's just the cost to get it installed. The cost to actually run it day to day is a whole separate ongoing expense.
Now we get to the foundation. And let me tell you, this is often the trickiest and most expensive part of the whole build. For an agent to be genuinely smart, it needs a foundation of really good, clean data. We're talking about cleaning up your existing data, setting up special databases, the whole 9 yards. But here's the upside. When you do this right, you're not just building an agent. You're creating a high-quality data asset that can power all sorts of other projects for years to come.
So yeah, pouring that data foundation is a heavy lift. It comes in at anywhere from $30,000 to a whopping $80,000. It's almost always the most time-consuming part of the project, but you just can't skip it. A solid data layer is what makes the agent reliable and stops it from making silly mistakes.
Once the foundation is set, it's time to build the framework of the house. This is basically the agent's brain. It's where you define all the business rules, the decision-making processes, all the workflows it's going to automate. You know, what does it actually do when someone asks it a question? Building out that core logic costs between $25,000 and $70,000. And that big range? It's all about complexity. An agent that just schedules meetings is one thing. An agent that has to manage a global supply chain, that is a whole different ballgame. Now for the utilities, the plumbing, the electrical. An agent that can't connect to anything else is just a smart thing in a box. It's not that useful. This step is all about integrating it with your existing software, your CRM, your inventory systems, you name it. This is what lets the agent actually turn on the taps and get things done. And hooking up all that plumbing will cost you anywhere from $20,000 to $60,000.
The big variable here is what your current tech looks like. If you're running on a lot of older legacy systems, you can bet that number is going to be on the higher, more painful end of the scale.
And finally, you wouldn't build a beautiful new house and leave the doors unlocked, right? Of course not. So you need a top-of-the-line security system. This part is absolutely non-negotiable. It means setting up access controls, creating audit logs so you can see everything the agent does, and making sure it follows all the data privacy rules.
This critical security layer adds another $10,000 to $30,000 to the final bill. And trust me, trying to save a few bucks by skipping this step is just asking for a disaster down the road. It's an investment in safety and, frankly, peace of mind.
Okay, we've laid all the bricks, we've installed the plumbing, we've seen what each individual piece costs, so now let's put it all together and see what the final sticker price on our new AI house looks like. So when you add it all up, the final cost really depends on how big you want to go. A simple pilot project for one task, think of it like building a small guest house, starts around $60,000 to $120,000. An agent for a whole department? Now you're jumping up to between $120,000 and $250,000. And for a full enterprise-scale mansion, you're looking at $250,000 easy. And honestly, it often goes way higher than that.
Seeing it laid out like this really drives the point home, doesn't it? You can see how that cost range doesn't just grow, it basically explodes as the agent's scope gets bigger and more complex. The investment scales up dramatically with your ambition.
But hang on, we're not done yet. And this is a really crucial point that so many people forget. Building the agent is a one-time thing. But keeping it running, keeping it updated, and keeping it effective, that's an ongoing expense you have to plan for. The project is not over when you launch.
And that ongoing cost is pretty significant. A really good rule of thumb is to budget between 15% and 30% of the initial build cost every single year. Think of it like the property taxes, insurance, and maintenance on your new house. It covers all the cloud costs, model updates, security monitoring, all of it.
Now, those numbers are serious, I get it, but you're not helpless. There are some really smart ways to keep that budget in check. First, using that RAG system we talked about is way cheaper than constantly fine-tuning your model. Second, build components that can be reused across the company, so you're not reinventing the wheel. Third, be strategic. Start with projects that give you the biggest bang for your buck. And finally, design a modular system from day one. It makes it so much cheaper to add new rooms to your house later on.
So, we've crunched all the numbers, we've gone through the technical bits, but what's the big picture here? Let's just zoom out for a second and look at the real strategic takeaway, why this big price tag actually matters.
And this, right here, is the key idea. The cost of building an AI agent isn't just some line item in the IT budget. It's a direct reflection of your company's strategic choices about how you see your future, how you govern your data, and what your long-term vision is. It's an investment in a core digital asset for your business.
Which leaves us with one last big question to think about. We've spent all this time breaking down the very real, very high cost of building an AI agent. But in an age where this tech is literally rewriting the rules for entire industries, what's the real cost of not building one? What's the price of getting left behind? That's the real strategic question, isn't it?